Welcome to the Yarn Thing podcast with Marley Bird. I'm your host, Marley Bird. You can catch the Yarn Thing podcast live every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock Mountain Time. That's 12 o'clock on the East Coast, 9 o'clock on the West Coast, and 11 o'clock in the Midwest. If you are anywhere else in the world or would like to join us live for the broadcast, please Google what time 10 o'clock Mountain Time is for you and come and join the fun. Better yet, since we are now a video podcast, you can just hit subscribe right here to the Marley Bird YouTube channel. And if you click that notification bell, you will be notified whenever we go live here on the podcast or when we release a new video to help you become a better knitter or crocheter or general crafter, really. We're starting to try and get a little bit more involved in that side of items as well. We do have sponsors here on the podcast, so I'm going to say thank you to yarnspirations.com, Erin Lane Bags, Creative Bug, and last but certainly not least, Stitches Events, which has really just taken a hit here with the coronavirus pandemic happening. But we are all here rooting for you over there at Stitches and hope that you can hold strong and you will be back at it with all of the wonderful events that you supply to the knitting and crochet and quilting community. So those are our lovely sponsors. If you happen to go by them and say hello, make sure you let them know that you heard about them right here on the Marley Bird podcast, because it's good for them to know that their advertising dollars are well spent, especially in this day and age, right? So today's guest is a long time friend of mine. She and I have known each other for quite a while now. She's been on the podcast before to talk about her designs, and this time she's coming back and she's talking about something that she has become very passionate about, and I'm very interested in discussing with her. And we're going to talk about recycled yarns and plarn and other ways that you can essentially upcycle items to reduce waste and textile waste specifically. Given that we are like right up to the edge of Earth Day, I think this is really apropos and great timing. So thank you so much for joining us, April, during this time frame. And I'm excited to talk with you about everything you've got going on. So everybody, please welcome April Garwood from Banana Moon Studios. So hello, April. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I know that you have little kids as well. Are you holding up pretty all right, being home with everybody and doing all the things?
Yeah, we're actually doing pretty well. We have homeschooled for a while. And so actually schooling didn't change all that much for my family. I think when we knew each other, my kids were little. They're not so little anymore. My youngest is 10.
Wow.
So
wow, they grew up so fast.
They do. So they've all been doing online schooling already. So the only thing that really changed that much for us over the past month or so is that my husband has been working from home.
Yep. It's same thing here. Well, same thing in the sense that my husband is home now, but all three kids are home. But I do have a senior in high school, so that's been a little bit rough for her. Her senior year has totally it's been ransacked. I moved her senior year across country, and then now with all of this, she's like, "Thanks, Mom. Thanks so much." So like you'll get through, baby girl. But you know, it's been an adjustment for sure. And especially for me and my kids who are very social, being home with one another just doesn't seem to cut it that much. But, you know, we're doing the best we can and playing a lot of games together. And none of them want to knit or crochet with me right now. They're like, "No, Mom, that's what you do. That's what you do." I'm like, "All right, fine." Yeah. Anyways, so not much has changed, which is good in your world. But things have changed in your business side since the last time you were on the podcast. Do you want to talk a little bit about what we're here to talk about today?
Well, so I guess it was late last year. I got from Cascade Yarns samples of their new and upcoming yarns. And I'm going to grab something out of my bag here. They sent me samples for 2 yarns. And I still have the little samples. This one is called a Reverb. Mm-hmm. And then this one is Rebound. And I liked the feel of them. They're soft. And I read on the information that they gave me about those samples that these yarns were made out of 70% what they call PET, which is basically polyester made completely from recycled plastic.
Okay.
And the other 30% in the reverb is recycled alpaca, and in the rebound is recycled cotton. And I just thought, I was impressed with how they felt, and I liked them, and I just thought, well, that's really great. So I contacted Cascade about using those yarns and designs, and it just kind of birthed this whole theme that I thought, you know what, I'm going to do that for this next year. I'm going to focus on recycling and reclaiming in the yarn industry, and just find out more about it. So I got some of their reverb in 3 different colors, and I made this infinity scarf. So one side of it is motifs, but the other side is double crochet stripes.
That's beautiful.
And so I made this scarf, and I like it doubled because then when you double it, you can see kind of both sides of the design, right? So now I'm going to mess my hair all up. And I was just impressed with the fact that even though this comes from recycled plastic, it's comfortable to wear. And so that is what started me on that. And I started researching recycling, reclaiming, waste, all of those kind of things. And so that was what started it. So I'm gonna this is from Cascade about their yarn. They show this picture here that they first take the plastic bottles and they shred them. And then it says they turn it into flakes and they wash it and dry it. And then they put it through this, they put it through pressure to extrude fiber out of it. So it's basically just polyester, which we're all used to, but 70% of that yarn comes from recycling plastic.
Which I know from here at my house, like we have a ton of plastic, and it's something like we've been talking a lot about here at the house as we like get groceries delivered and stuff, like we'll have plastic bottles and then the plastic bags that they all come in. Oh my gosh, we have so many plastic bags. And all of us are kind of feeling this sense of, man, there's just so much waste of, when we finish a jar of peanut butter and jelly, you have the plastic from the peanut butter and the jar from the jelly. It's like, what can we do with all of this? So it's exciting to learn that with the plastic, at least, this is a possibility.
Yeah. Well, and so in the reading that I've done about recycling, I've actually heard that it's fairly easy to recycle glass, metal, and paper. And so when you recycle those things, they tend to get reused. But what I've read is I've been researching a little bit about recycling plastic. Where is that? So you were talking about all the plastic that we have. These are stats that I found on an article from the National Geographic. Nearly 1 million plastic beverage bottles are sold every minute around the world. Can you believe that many? 1 million every minute. In 2015, Americans purchased about 346 bottles per person. That's almost one every day for every person in America. That's an astounding amount of plastic.
That's huge. And you don't think about here's the thing. We all go on in our lives, and there's a lot of things coming at us throughout the day that if we really let the concerns of literally everything bombard us, it would be very difficult. So sometimes it's hard to just take that step back and realize, oh my gosh, look at what's happening. And it's hard to do. It's that I want to call it self-preservation, but you're absolutely right. I think about just this morning, the amount of plastic items I've touched, whether it was my shampoo, my hairspray, my creamer for my coffee, all those items. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so sadly, what often happens is that because it's not easy to recycle plastic, and once they recycle it and they have this recycled plastic, it is actually sometimes cheaper for companies to use new plastic than it is for them to use recycled plastic, which means there's not as much of a market for recycled plastic as the amount of plastic we could produce by recycling. Does that make sense? And so if there's not anybody using recycled plastic, then it doesn't get recycled. So even if you put something plastic in a recycling bin, it may not actually get recycled and reused. If they don't have a market for anyone to use the recycled plastic, it'll still go in a landfill or an incinerator. And yeah.
It's hard. I know that in California, they've actually added tax, at least in Northern California when I was there, they've added tax to plastic bottles and such. So if you buy bottled items like soda or whatnot, there's an extra tax added on to those items to help incentivize the recycling and kind of make you aware of how much you're using, you're drinking or whatnot.
Yeah.
But you're right. And you know what? The hard part there is like, that's like with everything in life, right? Like as much as we love merino wool, if it's not going to sell and there's not much of a market because of the higher price, because it's a natural fiber, because of this, because of that, it doesn't mean it's not good. It just means that the market won't sustain it because of one reason or another. People can't afford it at this point in time, or they're willing to compensate having a natural fiber for a plastic fiber. Like it's all of the things that come together. So I can see economically how that makes sense that like if there's not a market for it, why put your energy into it? I mean, that we all do that in general in life. The question is, how do we create the market for it to get that buzz, to make it worthwhile for the people who do the recycling to recycle it instead of having it go into the landfill?
Exactly. And so when I saw these yarns from Cascade, I was like, that helps create a market for recycled plastic. So anytime you can find a yarn like those that uses that that recycled material, the recycled plastic that's in it, you help increase the demand for recycled plastic. So you're helping build that market.
Right. Absolutely.
So yeah.
There's a lot of comments in the chat room. So I'm gonna say hello to everybody. There's quite a few here listening today. They're glad that they have caught this podcast live, which is nice. The first thing that I see here is Carrie Benson is saying she loves your shawl. So I don't know if it's a shawl or a poncho, but it's beautiful.
I'll like try to, there's what the bottom of it. It is a poncho, but
it's beautiful.
Where does it connect over here?
Yeah. I love wearing those because then they don't fall off. I think they're great.
Yes.
Let's see here. So glad we caught this live. This is awesome. We need to be doing more. And she's talking about doing more to recycle and bring awareness. Chris Lopez says, that's great. There's such nice yarns. Renee says, yes, the plastic bags are an issue, which, we're all very aware of. And I'm going to talk about that later on in the podcast. I have a little thing happening tomorrow, but I don't want to talk about it right now. Let's see here. Glad we're getting this live. It always seems to come down to the bottom dollar. That's what Renee says. And yes, that's life. That's the way it all is, right? It says, are you familiar with Plastic Free July? It's a great annual event to try out different ways to avoid single-use plastics. I've never heard of that before. And that's from Melissa Spradley. And Renee is agreeing with her that she's never heard of that before. And Julie says, I love the idea of recycled yarn, recycling anything. And she has exclamation point. So this is obviously a market that people are interested in. But again, we're going to go back to where it's the bottom dollar. It's all going to depend on whether that yarn is affordable for them. I know it's crappy to say, but that's the way it is in the world, right? Sometimes we really want that jar of Smuckers, but we get the generic because then we can actually buy two instead of one. You know what I mean? And it's just the nature of the world. So, it is what it is. So I love, though, like you, that Cascade has been doing this. I know Berroco has done something like this as well. Two companies that I highly respect, and I've loved working with them in the past. I love the owner of Cascade. She's one of my favorite people. I don't know the owners of Berroco, but I love their yarns. So that's good. So here you are, you're working with Cascade's yarn. What was it called again?
So they have Reverb, which has alpaca in it, and they have Rebound, which has cotton in it.
Okay, Reverb and Rebound. Cool. Rebound sounds like a really good market bag sort of yarn. But have you used the Berroco yarn? Have you used some of the others, or after
So,
learning about these, what have you found?
well, so once I found out about those, I started looking around on every yarn company I could think of to see who else had something like that. So I'll share with you a list of what I found. I did find that Berroco has Remix. They also have it in a finer gauge. And so I actually have a sweater quantity of this. So probably at some point in the future, there's going to be a top in this that I'm going to do as part of this whole series. And it is, again, it's soft. It's going to be nice to use. So I found Blue Sky Fibers has an eco cashmere that includes recycled cashmere. Lana Grossa has one called 75 that's mostly recycled cashmere. They also have one that includes organic wool, organic cotton, and recycled cashmere. That one's a bulky. Art Yarns has one that includes recycled cashmere. Shibui Knits has one that includes recycled silk. Wool and the Gang, they have one that also includes that polyester from recycled plastic. They also have one called Jersey Be Good, which they said most of the cotton in that are offcuts from factories. So that's helping reduce textile waste. Darn Good Yarn, all of their yarn is recycled. I think most of it's like recycled sari silk. I don't know if I said that word right, that S-A-R-I. That's
yeah.
And then if you're into spinning, which I am, Paradise Fibers has a number of spinning fibers that are recycled. And then Lion Brand has one called Re-Up that's recycled cotton and some polyester. Lion Brand Retweed has a recycled tweed. And then there's the Berroco Remix and Remix Light. Another of the yarns that I have been working in, and I'm in the middle, this is a sneak peek, okay, because this is unpublished, but this is a knit sock. The second one is on the needles, but this is in Ancient Arts Yarn Revival. So this is an indie dyer out of Canada that I got to know when I was at a yarn show. And they have this revival, and then they have a revival worsted. So they have a little bit larger one. But this is going to be the next pattern in this series, these knit
That's
socks.
Cool. I'm working on crocheted socks right now. Look at that.
Oh, fun. Those are fun.
I was like, she's pulling up a sock. I got to show my sock.
Yeah. Well, here is the second sock.
Yep. That happens.
In process. So that is Ancient Arts Revival. And I wish I had my fiber content here with me. That yarn I know, because I talk with their people a lot. It is several different fibers and they're all reclaimed. And what that means, reclaimed fibers, is they take what would have been waste fiber at the mill and they recapture it and spin it. So I don't understand exactly what that means, but I'm thinking like with all the brushes and the machinery that they have in a mill, sometimes there's little bits of fiber that come off.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's lots of fuzz and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Right. So they're taking that, I think, and they're recapturing it and spinning it into a yarn, and it's soft. It's nice.
That's cool. Collage Yarns used to be a yarn company that was around. I loved working with them a lot, and they had a yarn called Riveting, and it was recycled blue jeans. Now, since then, other companies have come out with this process, but they were the ones who did it first, and they held on to that yarn and worked with the mills that did that on their own and didn't allow other companies to do it. So when they went out of business, other companies are able to do it. But it was such wonderful yarn to work with because it's recycled blue jeans, like blue jean cotton. It's awesome. So that was a lot of fun to work with too. The collage yarns. I had a lot of designs with their stuff.
Yeah. So then one of the others that I've already worked with is this. This is recycled linen from Trendsetter Yarns. The amazing thing about this yarn is I'm sure you have felt linen yarn before. Mm-hmm. How does linen yarn typically feel?
It's very rough off the skein. It's after you work with it and wash it and dry it, it gets softer and softer and softer and softer. People don't believe me. Same thing with hemp.
Yeah. The amazing thing about this Trendsetter recycled linen, though, is that it's actually soft the first time. And
nice.
It's soft and it drapes. So they explained to me that they start with fabric that, fabric that is made of linen. and they
Mm-hmm.
shred it. And then they
Ah,
take that fiber and they spin it around a core of new linen. So
okay.
it's not 100% recycled linen, but most of the fiber in it is. And
Which
it's
is why it's
soft.
soft at the
Mhm.
beginning because it's
Yeah.
already been through that washing and drying and all that stuff.
Hmm.
But I love linen. Linen is one of
Yeah.
my favorite things to work with because it's so amazing.
Yeah.
That's
So
so cool. And that's Trendsetter
this
Yarns.
it is Trendsetter Yarns. Yep.
I
And
love Barry Klein.
interestingly, what I found out about it is that it comes in hand dyed. I think there were 10 hand dyed colors, and you'll know they were dyed by Lorna Miser. So she is
Yes.
the dyer that started Lorna's Laces, but now dyes for Zombie Yarns. So she
Yes.
dyes this yarn for them.
That's fantastic.
Yep. So
So many.
yeah, so this that I'm wearing is called Pensacola Poncho.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like spring, summer. It's Bruges lace. If you're familiar with what that is, I imagine you are. Um, and yeah, just a good spring, summer poncho.
That's fantastic. I love it. So I'm gonna come over here to the comments because I
Okay.
want to make sure I'm catching everybody here. And I'm gonna scroll down. I do want to give a shout out real quick to my cousin Arwen. So she is just the cutest thing. I know her husband. I know her father and her mother and her grandmother and great grandpa because they're my husband's family. And so she is a new viewer and she's here on the podcast watching. So I'm gonna just say hello to Arwen, which I love her name. But she says hello. Heather Spinden says that Walmart uses recycled plastic bottles for their new vest that the associates wear. Did you know that?
Oh, I did not know
I
that.
did
That's
not know
nice.
that as well.
Well,
Renee says, I've been known to go to Goodwill to get old sweaters and reuse the yarn. Haha, that's a great segue.
we can talk about that
That's a
actually.
great segue.
Ta-da!
Okay, so I'm gonna jump ahead real quick. Somebody is saying they love the darn good yarns with the sari silk. Other people are saying they love this topic. Naomi says, I love ancient arts yarns, and she's from Canada.
Yay. I
Support
love them
local,
too.
so it's important doing that, especially at this time in the world. And somebody says I should do a knit along with linen. Okay, I'll add that to my list. So yeah, let's talk about recycling. So say everybody's like, okay, great, there's these yarns. I can't get them for whatever reason. I don't want to order online. I don't know,
Mhm.
whatever the reason happens to be. But they're like, I really like the idea of recycling, reusing, reclaiming. What can they do? And I think the whole idea of Goodwill or
Mhm.
I almost said yarn stores, yard sales,
Yes.
all of that is a good idea. So I'm gonna let you take it away.
Okay. Well, I'm going to share a little bit more of my research about this because I think it's really interesting. Um, so this is from Newsweek. It says, according to the EPA, 84% of unwanted clothes in the United States in 2012 went into either a landfill or an incinerator. And then I also read another article that I found from NPR where they talked about how so much of what we donate to thrift stores eventually winds up in landfills or incinerators because it's not good quality, because it's stained, because nobody buys it, whatever the reason. So we have a lot of textile waste going into our landfills as well. I mean, if you can even just imagine piles of clothing winding up in the trash. And the clothing itself might not be usable, but sometimes the materials it's made of are, like you were talking about, the recycled jeans. So that idea of going to thrift stores, I went into a thrift store and I came across this sweater. It's not especially pretty color-wise, but the thing that's amazing about it is this 100% alpaca. It's so soft. And I was amazed to find something like that in a thrift store, something that's made of a really nice fiber. Now, I don't know exactly how it's going to go when I try to undo this. So when you hand knit something, you knit all the pieces individually and you sew them together. But sometimes when they put, like when they commercially make knit items, they cut the pieces out of a big piece of knit fabric. If they do that, then when you undo the seams in that garment, You're just going to have a bunch of little pieces of yarn. So I don't know yet, because I haven't undone this, whether or not that's going to happen when I take this sweater out. But you can go to thrift stores and you can find something that's made out of yarn, and then you can undo it to get the yarn. So when I do that, I'm going to have to undo the seams in this, and then I'm going to have to unravel it. What's even better is if you can find something that doesn't have many seams in it, because if it doesn't have a lot of seams, then you know it's not going to be just a bunch of little pieces of yarn. So I did find this sweater, and then I grabbed two others that were not made of just super nice materials, but I thought that the yarn was really pretty. So that's a project I actually haven't done yet. I've gotten the sweaters for it, but it's something that once I do it, I'm going to be blogging about that over the coming months. So it's something I'm excited about trying.
Absolutely. And then speaking about how sometimes it's cut out of a giant fabric of knit fabric. One thing that you can do if you're finding, oh, look, this was one of those type instances, you can actually take the sweater that you have and treat it as a fabric and make mittens and stuff. You can cut out items. So there's still use to it. It's just you won't have the yarn as one big hank.
Right.
Somebody in the chat room is asking, oh, Cheryl has great minds. So Cheryl is saying a friend makes mittens out of sweaters. Ding, ding, ding. Another woman is saying, how do you know where to begin to unravel, whether it's the top or the bottom? Or, I mean, for me, I would just be like trial and error, do a couple and see where my string is. And if it starts to unravel easily, you know, you're at the right end. If it doesn't, you're at the wrong end.
I think once you undo the seams, if you are like, this is knit, I haven't, so first of all, if you find a crochet sweater in a thrift store, it's going to be, I'm nearly positive, all crocheted in one piece, because, or what do I mean by that? I mean that you should be able to unravel it, because machines can't crochet. So if it's actually crochet, then you should be able to just unravel it. If it's knit, I think if you have a fair amount of experience with knitting, once you get the seams undone, I kind of think you should be able to see what's the top and what's the bottom. Yeah, it's just a question of like, where you're going to find the end. So yeah, I think it's going to kind of be trial and error, because I haven't, like I said, I haven't really tried it yet, but it's coming.
Right. So we got more comments coming in. People are saying, you never know what you're going to find at a consignment store. And that's so true. I mean, I have found some crazy things at a consignment store. And then people are saying you could make mittens and hats. My biggest fear is unraveling and having a bunch of little pieces of yarn. Yeah, I mean, that happens. And I mean, and that's fine. Once, I mean, if you'll find out after the first couple rows. So then that's when you can make something else. Let's see here. Pink says, Pink Hut haha. It says her in-law ties my plans for them is a blanket. So I wonder if she ties together I don't know, something, and then she makes a blanket with the ties. Let's see here. They're talking about pillows too, like knit pillows, you know, like throw pillows. Let's see here. Sorry. I love recycling textiles. Worried about the seams. You can always check out the seams. And if you recognize a seam to be like a mattress stitch or something, you can be like, oh, I know this. Or if it's whip stitched together, you'll be like, oh man, that's great. It's not just like a sewing machine done up. Let's see. Melissa Coleman says there are a few tutorials on YouTube on how to take apart a sweater and how to best wash the yarn before you use it to get anything out before you use it. Absolutely. Let's see here. Out of the Blue says I'd start at the collar because then you're just out just this little bit of yarn if something happens. There you go. Those are the biggest questions people have.
Well, so one thing I can say about when you unravel it, because we all know when we unravel a project, a little ways to fix a mistake that our yarn is all kinked up. So once you unravel it, some people will be like, well, what do you do with it then? Well, I don't know if you can see over my shoulder here, my Yarn Swift. If you have a yarn swift, wrap the yarn around that, tie it off with some waste yarn in 4 places, soak it in water, put it over the hook of a hanger and hang it to dry in your shower. The weight of the water will help pull the kinks out, and when it dries, if it's natural fiber, I'm not sure how well polyester or acrylic will handle that, but this alpaca sweater that I have, it's going to take the kinks right out of the yarn.
Right. Absolutely.
Yep. So there's that. And then one other thing I might mention about getting stuff from a thrift store, this alpaca sweater that I showed you, it had a hole in one of the pockets. And I wasn't sure looking at that hole if it was like, did this just come undone, or could there be bugs in this?
Oh.
So that's one thing, because you might worry about lice, you might worry about bed bugs, you might also worry in our case about wool moths, because none of those are things we want to bring into our house.
Right.
So when I found that hole, I put this sweater in a big Ziploc bag and I stuck it in our deep freezer for like, I got this back in October and I just pulled it out of the freezer a couple days ago. So it was in there for several months. So I'm feeling very confident that if there were any bugs in there, they're dead. So if you bring something in from a thrift store and you're worried about the potential of bugs, either put it out in the sun in a black trash bag for a few days and you'll roast whatever's in there, or put it in the freezer. And I kind of hate to say both of those things because I'm talking about single-use plastic.
I totally understand. I totally get it.
Once you finish that, reuse the bag, okay? But anyway, so that was what I did to make sure that I wasn't going to be bringing in bugs into my house.
That's perfect. So speaking of single-use plastic, one of the biggest culprits of that are bags from the grocery store and such. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't know what plarn is, everybody, it is yarn made from plastic bags. You actually cut them into strips, tie them together, and then use them as yarn. Have you made plarn before? I know that my friend Tammy has done a lot of plarn things.
So I just tried it for the first time a couple months ago because that was one of the things that I wanted to do for this whole focus. So I will show you. This is a basket that I crocheted out of plarn, and some of my yarn is in here. And these were a lot of fun. So I have a pattern up on my site for these, but it kind of walks you through how to make it whatever size you want. So you can make it bigger around, you can make it taller, shorter, however you want to do it. But it is a lightweight basket. And I have to tell you, when I finished this basket, everybody in my family was in love with it. They're just like, this is so fun. They loved it.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I thought I might show you, when I find my scissors, how to cut your grocery bags into plarn.
Okay.
So I have a couple here. I took the time to kind of smooth this out. If you know, they're kind of folded here at the bottom, and if you kind of grab like this, you can straighten out the sides. So I smooth these out, and then you're going to fold it just like this. And then again, I got to set this on my lap, but you'll be able to see when I pick this up. I just folded it 3 times across, and you can eyeball this. It doesn't have to be exact. And then you cut off this irregular top, because you know, it has these little flappy bits up here and the handles. I really wanted to find a way to make plarn that didn't cut off the handles. But when I did, my basket had these little flaps of plastic sticking up all over it. It was still functional. So if you don't mind having those little flappy bits, I can show you how to cut one that includes the handles. But if you don't want it to have little flappy pieces of plastic all over it, you're going to have to cut off the handles. Okay, and so then you just cut off a tiny bit at the bottom to get rid of the seam at the bottom. Okay, so I cut off this much. And then you can eyeball this. You're going to cut this piece in half and then layer those pieces and then cut those in half. This is not an exact science. You can just eyeball it, like I said. So that leaves you with 4 loops like this. And you connect them end to end by putting one through the end of the other. So you make kind of a T like this. And then you're going to put one end through the other of this top one, pull it straight again, and then pull the 2 apart. and it makes a knot between them. And so you can just keep joining more and more of these rings this way. You put them through one end through the other and then pull them apart. And so it makes your plarn. And where is my hook? I brought it over here so I'd have it. No, I don't know where I put it. Oh, there it is. Once you get ready to start this, it's really bulky if you try to do your typical slip knot. So you're just going to take your, how do I show this on here? Your end, kind of fold it down like that, and then grab this piece through the loops, and you've made a loop that you can put your hook through. And then you just start crocheting from there. I've never tried knitting with plarn, so I don't know if anybody does that. Most everything I've seen is crocheting with it. But yeah, so that's how you make it.
I've only seen crochet also, but I mean, it looks so incredibly easy. And I mean, it's a great way to make a very durable basket or make it into another bag. I've seen people use plarn to make like bed mats or whatever for the homeless, or even for kindergartners to take naps on, you know, so that they're not on a cold floor. There's a lot of different uses for them, more than just picking up poop in your backyard, everybody. Although that's very helpful too. So cool. I love that you were able to do that. Through all of this, have your kids learned more? Have they like said, Mom, I never really thought about this? Or do they look at different things that might come home and be like, oh, look, we could do this, you know, we could do this with this, or whatever it may be?
I wish I could say that they are feeling inspired, but we did make it a point to get everyone in our family a good water bottle, like a reusable one, so that we could stop buying water when we are out and about.
Yeah.
So we try to remember to take those with us when we go places, so that we're not having to purchase water when we're out on the go. So and it's something I still want to learn more about, other ways to avoid single-use plastic, because our family still uses a lot, and I wish that it were easier to grocery shop without purchasing things that are in those clamshell containers. Or we always order our groceries from the store. I know a lot of people do that now, and we do, because who really enjoy, some people enjoy shopping. I don't enjoy shopping. I never have. And I'm busy. So, but unfortunately here in Oklahoma, where I live, they have not banned plastic bags. And so when we order our groceries, I have to say those people packing the grocery order are not concerned about how many bags they use.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yep, that happens a lot here too.
Yeah, so we have a mountain of plastic bags, and I'm glad that I have a way that I can use them, though, to make something useful.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah.
So there is a comment over here. There is, I've lost it. A woman was saying that she is knitting with the plarn, and she says it's coming out very tight. So it's coming out, it's hard. Oh, here it is. V Richard. So it's a guy or girl, I'm not sure. I have knitted with it and it comes out a lot tighter. And B Kern says, my biggest worry with plarn is some bags are biodegradable, and I would hate to do all that work just to have it disintegrate. Beth. And so that was from Beth. Let's see here. And V Richard says, and talk about recycling. I have made t-shirts out of old t-shirts I have gotten from the Goodwill and secondhand stores. So that's great.
Nice. Yeah.
Let's see here. I homeschool my boys, and we made everything a lesson in learning. So that's one thing that she is saying that she is doing with that. Let's see here. Clamshells are great for making shrink-a-dink stuff. There you go.
That's fun. I hadn't thought about that.
There's something different. I hadn't thought about that too. And let's see, it says in LA County, we have to pay for plastic bags when we go to the market. Yep. That happens quite a bit. I know up in San Francisco, it's the same thing. And in Chicago, different parts of Chicago, I think it has that also. You know, I think it's just in general, as we all around the world become more and more aware and increasingly concerned with the effects that plastic has on our life and of the lives of, you know, everybody else on this planet, whether it's in the ocean, in the landfill, whatever it is, it's something that we need to be aware of, especially right now, you know, and with Earth Day being tomorrow, it just seems very wise to do that. So, thank you for coming on here. Now, I know that we do have a prize to give away to people who are listening live to the broadcast right now. So, if you would like to let them know what they could win by leaving a comment on the chat right now, let's see here. So what should we have them say in the chat? Because we'll randomly select a winner.
Okay, well, let's see. I know we had talked about a code word, but I think that's for the other
It can be
viewers, isn't
anything
it?
you
It can
want.
be any. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so
It could
why
be the
don't
same for
you?
both.
I want you to tell us about something that you recycle.
Okay, so list something that you can recycle in the live chat. So if you're listening live right now, there's about 160 of you listening live right now. Leave a comment in the live chat telling me something that you do recycle or can recycle, and that will enter you for a chance to win what, April?
Okay, so I have 2 skeins of Berroco Remix. So this is Berroco's yarn that is recycled, reclaimed. And it includes nylon, cotton, acrylic, silk, and linen. And all of those are like we talked about, those captured fibers. So I have that. And then I also have a Banana Moon Studio stitch marker for you that's bananas. You can have it with a lobster clasp or without, whatever your preference is. So 2 skeins of yarn and a stitch marker.
Okay, so while everybody is listing the things that they can recycle in the live chat to win those 2 skeins of yarn and the stitch marker, I do want to remind people that they can go to your website to learn more about the products you're using, the patterns you're designing, and follow your journey through this. So let's tell them what your website is. And the link is in the show notes, everybody, just so you know, in the video description box, that's where you will find the show notes. We'll go over that also, but where can they follow you, April?
It's bananamoonstudio.com. That's my website, and you can find me on most social media platforms as Banana Moon Studio.
That's perfect. And that was because your kids came up with that, right? Didn't they?
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
It goes back to a story about my oldest, who used to find, like, she saw a crescent moon out the window one time and she called it a banana.
Yeah.
And so it kind of went back to that. So I named it Banana Moon Studio, yes. And then my original logo, I painted a banana and then pressed it onto the paper several times. So yeah, that was fun.
That's cool. All right, so I am going to do a share screen here of the show notes because it's important for me to get this through to everybody. In the video description box of this particular video, you will see there is a link for the show notes, and that link will take you to this page. So this is actually the URL for the show notes. On this page, this is my website, everybody. If you've never been there before, welcome. This is what it looks like. You can see that we have a brief talk discussion about April, about recycling. And if you keep scrolling down, you will see that there is even more information. And these are all of the links that you could use to follow April through her journey. After the podcast, I do try and get the actual video posted right here. But all the way down here, this is why I'm showing this all to you. You'll see where it says giveaway. And it's because we always have a giveaway for people who watch the podcast live, and to those of you who catch it later on and watch it live, whatever, you can win something as well by coming over here and leaving a comment. So I'm going to keep scrolling and all the way down here. Notice I'm still scrolling. Down here at the bottom, this is where you can leave a comment. So right here, you will leave a comment, including a keyword that April's going to give us, and that will enter you for a chance to win another prize. All right, so everybody has it. You have to leave your comment at the show notes, which are listed right here over at marleybird.com. If you're ever in doubt, everybody, I'm going to scroll up here to the top. If you're ever in doubt, right here, it says Yarn Thing Podcast. Show notes. Click that. That will take you to this page here, which talks about the show notes. And it gives you a link to all the different podcasts we have done. So if you have missed a podcast, here's one I totally recommend. This yoga podcast was awesome. Always come here and you can click whatever show notes you want, and it will take you to that podcast. Okay, so that whenever you're in doubt, you can absolutely do that. All right. So what is the keyword they should use in the comments on the show notes? And what are they going to win?
Okay, so your keyword is recycle. And for our commenter afterwards, they will be getting a free pattern download of all the patterns in this series. So that's the infinity scarf I showed you earlier, this poncho, the baskets made out of Klarn, the sock that I showed you. That one isn't up yet, but it will be soon. So as long as I continue working on this theme of recycling, reclaiming, all of that, my plan is to send this winner a free download of each of those patterns.
That's perfect. Perfect. So make sure you leave a comment with the keyword recycled over there on the show notes. And for those of you who are listening live still and still adding everything that you can recycle, I hear you, I see you, I'm scrolling, I'm going all the way up to where it all started, and I'm going to start scrolling down. April, you tell me when to stop. Wherever my cursor lands, that will be the lucky winner.
Okay, stop.
All right, I stopped, and it is on Out of the Blue. Out of the Blue. She or he says you can recycle glass jars. So, woohoo. Congratulations, Out of the Blue. Okay, so I'm going to I've got a comment here and tell them that they can email me with their mailing address and phone number I can give them to you so you can mail them the items. While I'm typing this out, because I can't talk and type at the same time, are you able to tell what are you going to do to celebrate Earth Day?
Well, as I talked about, I've been working on this pair of socks that is made in reclaimed fibers, and I did actually snag the yarn label. So the socks I was telling you about earlier, they include wool, mohair, nylon, acrylic, and silk. So all of that, those reclaimed fibers are going to be in those socks. So I'll be working on that. We're so blessed at my house to have a beautiful outdoor space. We have woods right behind our house. So we will spend some time outside as a family, and just grateful to have so much around us. We have hummingbird feeders out back and flowers in bloom. And so I'll spend some time outside enjoying what we have here.
Fantastic. Well, cool. Well, over here at the Marley Bird Studio, we are going to celebrate Earth Day with a special collaboration with Selena Baca. So we are going to be doing brand new free patterns getting released. I have this pattern right here, and it's some cool stuff, and a bunch of other patterns that we will have on sale for $1. They're great market bags. Just a bunch of really great things that we thought we would put out there to kind of help people to hopefully replace their plastic with some, if they're using acrylic yarn, it's plastics too, but it's at least a reusable product that we can use. And so that's how we are going to celebrate over here. So we're excited to get that going for tomorrow's Earth Day event. But it's cool. I've loved having you on the podcast. It's always a delight to talk to you. And you're always such a pleasure, such a pleasure. I hope that your family stays healthy, whole, and I'm excited to see everything you have planned for the future with all of this.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun to talk to you too. I know it's been a long time. So
it has been. It has been. Well, thank you for bringing this to our attention. And to the audience, thank you so much for joining us today. Please, if you've enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to smash that like button. It is very important that you always hit the like button here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel, because YouTube likes that. And if you want to jot down something very kind in the comments, we would love that as well. It's the best way for us to be able to get the word out that, hey, this is a pretty good channel. We're doing pretty all right. All right, everybody. I hope you have a healthy and happy rest of your day. I will talk to you again next week. And stay safe, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everyone.